Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So as you might guess, today we are going to be pulling some shards in pursuit of the fragments for the fusion for Lysanther Beastbane. And yeah, let's dive right in to the summon rush. Of course, we are not pulling without a purpose, as is the mantra on the channel here. So the summon rush was actually exactly where I predicted it for once. Usually it's, like I've always said, it's based on educated guesses from historical precedents, but Plarium can always decide to increase or decrease or whatever the milestones as they see fit. And in this case, I was correct in predicting that it was going to be at 3,000, i.e. 6 sacreds worth. So that is our goal. That is our plan for the day. 6 sacreds in the pursuit of these fragments for the epic for the fusion. Popping over to the portal, let's take a look at my overall shard count on the account at the moment. We have 708 on the ancients, 185 on the voids, 41 on the primals, and 63 on the sacreds, which of course we'll be dipping into today. If you're curious about my selections for the progressive chance events, I'm not expecting to get a legendary, full disclosure here, but if we do get lucky, then from this selection here, the Grand Oak Patrick would be the most optimal for my account. It would just be better than like Mikage for Fire Knight because he has the speed aura on top of having the ally attack, of course, but the cleanse and the turn meter fill with increased speed is really useful to get rid of all of the stuff that the Fire Knight throws out after he takes his turn, at least with milestone composition, which uses a Valkyrie. So the Fire Knight takes a turn whilst we have counterattack up, we counterattack, and then we ally attack, and then on the subsequent turn after that, he can come in fill our turn meter, which helps us stay ahead of the Fire Knight. He can remove all the debuffs, including the decreased defense and the decreased speed, which is just handy for keeping us alive, and then we can kind of move on from there and start trying to do some damage, but also get some continuous heals, which is just helpful for keeping us healed up after, once again, we take the slam from the boss on his first turn. And of course, the A1 would be handy too, because you have a chance to reduce the cooldown. In that particular team, that would be most probably useful on Newt, reducing the cooldown of Blessed Bash, which could just help you finish the boss a lot faster. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We don't even have the champion, so let's not start planning how to use them necessarily, even though I did that anyways, regardless. And then for the epic slot, I already have a fully empowered +4 Ugo, so I don't need more of her. And I think Deacon and Stag Knight are tied at +2 at the moment, so I just picked Stag Knight just because I use him in more areas than Deacon, although I probably use Deacon more just because I use him for like kind of arena flex turn meter fill champion for like my auxiliary speed team. But the Stag Knight's probably the more useful one in terms of general purpose utility with the decreased defense, decreased attack. So that is my selection. Now, I did mention that I am doing this with 6 sacreds. However, there could be a decent argument for doing this with voids as well, because there are decent there's decent champions up for grabs here from the void selection. Obviously, once again, the odds of you getting a legendary are low, and in my case, as we'll look at the Mercy in a few seconds here, is just unlikely for both shard types. But nonetheless, from my wish list, my revamped void legendary wish list, Queen of Hearts is pretty high up there. I think she's number 2 now, and she's just nice because, again, there's a lot of speed meta, or the speed meta is definitely back and alive and kicking in a live arena in particular, and just having that option that's kind of a danger to all the speed buff heavy compositions. You do all your stuff, and then she cuts in and can strip all your stuff off that you just put up, and then put True Fear, potentially block revive with the Death Brand. So really good counter to the speed meta that is definitely pervasive. So it would be nice to have her. But of course, Odin is also powerful, but I'm a little bit more afraid of Queen of Hearts than I am of Odin, so I'll just put that in perspective. But yeah, if we pop up the Mercy tracker on the screen here, this will kind of break down why or part of why I made that decision. But you can see here, we're just outside of Mercy on the Sacred, so no matter what happens today, unless we get a legendary in the next 4, I guess, we are going to be entering into Mercy here with the 6 Sacreds we're going to be pulling. But like I said, the alternative could be to pull 20 of my voids. That's the same equivalent of the 3,000 points. And, we're far from a void legendary because, of course, we got one last weekend. And yeah, so odds are low, but we could still see what can happen. But part of it's, being far away from Mercy and air quotes, wasting voids for that purpose is just not really worth it when I have sacreds that are a lot closer to Mercy. And of course, we're playing around the potential for a sacred Pogo, either ideally next weekend, whatever they're doing with the Hero's Path. I'm hoping that there's a sacred Pogo, pull one, get one. during that we can take advantage of whilst being in Mercy, assuming we don't get a legendary today. Or if all else fails, then we're just closer to Mercy, and then whenever the next event is, could be next weekend, then we just are more likely to get a legendary from that, progressive chance or whatever else is going on. So that is the plan there. And then the other aspect of it is that I selfishly kind of like being over 200 voids, and I did rip a lot during the last 2x, and so I'd prefer to hold off for a little bit and get back above 200 and then kind of pull back to there. But it's an arbitrary number. Of course, 200 is not anything special, but personal preference there. So 2 reasons to stick with the sacreds instead of the voids today. So in this case, we are going to skip the wish list because I have been fairly lucky as of late, so I'm not really looking for anything in particular. Obviously, getting a Patrick would be pretty substantial, as we discussed earlier, but again, the odds are low of us proccing a legendary here today, but you never know. There's always a chance. However, in terms of the epics that I do expect to get, I would like to get more duplicate epics for empowerment, of course, and namely Stagnite, of course, because he's going to be the boosted rate champion. So without further ado, let's get into the shards pools. We've got a bunch of space, we got a bunch of cash, and hopefully we get some, let's say, below average luck. Yeah, let's aim for the bottom here, because again, I've been fairly lucky as of late. So Stagnite, no, we got a visionary, really underwhelming champion, like decreased crit rate, decreased crit damage, and the inverse here with the turn meter fill. Like, she's okay if you really need her, like you pull her early mid game and you want like a turn meter manipulation type champion, but for most people she's not really going to do all that much. Stagnite, sweet. Number 1, we did proc the progressive chance events. Hopefully we can get a second one. That would be great, because then he would just be +4 automatically and we'd be done, and next time this comes around we could pick Deacon. But as we already mentioned, decrease AoE, decrease defense, decrease attack, super strong epic. You probably already know all about him. Seneschal, fairly underwhelming, but he can place an AoE provoke, which is pretty nice if you do need him in the Curse City or any other wave type content, which is pretty handy. I think he has a leech on the A1 to counterattack on himself. Sacred number 4, Vogoth, sweet. That's actually good for me. I think this is going to be a +4 on the Vogoth, so that is good. We'll take that. Mainly known for the passive. When he's attacked, he can heal everyone else by a portion of the damage. Super strong in Arena, super strong in Bolster, super strong in Guardian, super strong against Bommel, against the Dread minions. Just really, really strong in a lot of areas, and he's definitely like a mainstay of a lot of those epics only challenges that I like to partake in, but also decrease or provoke here. Not 100% chance, but you know, it's enough in a lot of instances. Sacred number 5. We are officially into Mercy here, so hopefully we continue with the bad luck, so to speak, because we do not want to hit a legendary. We want to preserve our Mercy for as long as possible here. Ambassador Lethlin, the only thing his calling card is that he's one of the few taunt champions, but he can apply it on someone. So I've seen some really niche strategies where you put taunt on like a Mortu Macabre, and then you know you have to attack him, and then he gets block revive, but not really seeing much play outside of that super niche situation. And then the last sacred for the day, we have Lady Booby Bell closing out here, of the fame of being able to solo Bommel, which is kind of her main claim to fame, or maybe her second main claim to fame, if depending on your perspective on her attributes there. But yeah, we'll take that. That's a pretty decent straightforward session there. 6 sacreds down, or not down the drain, but used in order to get this done. So we are complete. 3,000 points, pretty straightforward, and this is what you expect from most sessions, which is kind of what I expected from this session, is not to get a legendary. Of course, the odds are very, very low, and now we are in Mercy, so we're in a good position for a sacred pogo if it happens to happen, ideally before the next fusion event, which is going to be Hero's Path, which we know is going to be a summon rush, or perhaps even the more ideal scenario that particular Hero's Path overlaps with a sacred pogo event. That way we're just more prepared for Mercy, and we can get 2 legendaries instead of 1 if we happen to, or if we have to pull, regardless, for participating in that event. I'm actually going to hold off on empowering the champions, just because there is a champion training event starting tomorrow, or champion training tournament, excuse me, starting tomorrow. So I'm going to put some brews into them before I feed them, or before I consume them for empowerment. But as we mentioned, Vogoth here is at +3 currently, so he will be +4. He's going to be in amongst the ranks of the, I think, 5 or 6 +4 epics that I have nowadays. Or up to now, maybe, no, actually, no, quite a bit more. Never mind. 15 plus, somewhere around there. I'm not counting. But yeah, he's going to add to the list of the +4 epics, slowly building that stack out. And then Stagnite is in the vault somewhere. But I think, like I said, he's at +2 at the moment. Somewhere in here is Snaggy Boy. There he is. +2. So he's going to go to +3. So we'll take it. So a little bit of empowerment. And yeah, that is going to do it for today's pull session. Let me know in the comment section down below if you are going for the fusion and you're pursuing it, and what your strategy is, because there is a world where you could skip the entirety of this summon rush and go all in for the hero's path, whatever that may be. It's a bit of a gamble, and I prefer to be more conservative when it comes to that type of stuff, but that's not necessarily a bad plan, so it could go either way. But I plan to do both, minimize the hero's path just in case there's some weird gimmick going on there, but if there is potential for more rewards, then I could just kind of overcap on the fusion and bank the rest of the excess for Maud. As always, if you did enjoy the video, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit that subscribe button down below if you're enjoying the content overall on the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.